I was at a dinner party, and we were all sitting around eating dessert. The guys were outside having cigars, and the women were having tea and dessert. And the hostess of the party, uh, someone kept asking me to become friends with this person. And we were friends, but kind of at a distance. And I just didn't have the feeling of it. I didn't feel it. And we're sitting around. Nobody knows I'm psychic at this party. And all of a sudden, I see these tentacles coming off of the hostess and taking other people's energy. And she would talk about things that were really dramatic, which would make the dinner party really fun and interesting. It was always drama. But then as people are releasing epinephrine and norepinephrine from their system, her tentacles are going out and sucking it off. And I even saw the tentacles coming towards me, but because I could see them, they just turned away. So it was, so I was like, oh, that's why I don't want to be friends with her.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Marie Manuchehri on the show with us today. Marie's an intuitive healer, medium, and a former oncology nurse. She cares for clients around the world by providing insights into their health issues and how to connect with their deceased loved ones' spirits. I'm eager to learn how Marie connects to people and how it benefits them. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now let's go chat with Marie. Marie, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. I've had so many people say, oh, you got to talk to Marie. You got to talk to Marie. So I get to talk to Marie.
Thank you, Julie. It's because we're soul sisters. I bet our stories are very similar. Our experiences are very similar. Our abilities are probably very similar. We're very lucky, I think, creatures to be on Earth right now and to have the multisensory experiences that we get to have along with our human experiences too. It's such a blessing. And thank you for having me.
Oh, my honor. You say subtle energy fields emanate from all living things.
Even non-living things, really,
How did you know that?
So I was raised very holistically. Like my mother would never take us to a doctor. We would go see a chiropractor or an herbal medicine physician. We did have a pediatrician. I have 4 siblings and we're all a year apart. So you can only imagine the trouble we would get into. But we rarely went to the pediatrician. So I had this very holistic upbringing. My parents left the Catholic Church when I was about 4 or 5, and my mother dove into spirituality. So she started to fill all of the bookshelves but it really wasn't. So I've always had an awareness, but not knowing I was multisensory. I had no idea. I had no early experiences that would say, oh my gosh, I'm psychic. Although I do come, which I also didn't know, from a family line of psychic people, which I didn't know till I was an adult. But it was when I was an oncology nurse. When you follow the things that bring you joy, like it made no sense for me to go to nursing school when I was raised so holistically to go into modern medicine, but it brought me joy. The first time I walked in the hospital when I was pregnant, it brought me enormous joy, like joy that lasted for days. And then I ended up going to nursing school, loved it, loved every job. I miss the hospital still every day. In fact, when someone in my family needs to have a procedure, they call me because they know I'm going to have the most fun in the hospital, which means they're going to have the best outcome from their procedure, because we're in high frequency and high vibration. So it was while I was on the oncology floor that my patient's body started talking to me. I'd be at the bedside removing sutures or putting in an IV or, taking their blood pressure, and their bodies started to talk to me. So I began to.
What does that mean? Describe that for us.
Okay. So the description that I remember the most was I was at a woman's bedside and, it's noisy on an oncology floor. You're giving lots of chemicals to people and you've got tons of IVs and, it's a complicated health situation because we did in-house, not outpatient. So I'm at the bedside and all of a sudden it was as if my physical eyes became like x-rays and they moved through the white blanket, through her hospital gown and into her body. And I went directly into the liver. And because I was raised so holistically, I wasn't scared like I'm having a terrible experience. I studied anatomy, so I wasn't sure if exactly what was happening to me, but I didn't stop it, which is what you did in your life. You never stopped it, which is really, at least I don't believe so anyway. And the liver told me why she was sick, obviously because of the chemicals we were giving her, which I'm not against. I don't care how people heal. It doesn't matter to me. People can heal in all different kinds of ways. Of course, I want them to heal holistically and energetically. Of course I do. But some people are scared and they're going to choose different methods depending on their health issues. So the liver was telling me just how much repressed anger this person had in their body. And that's really what created their disease process. So I would just be standing at the bedside having this mental telepathic conversation with body parts and organs and anatomy and physiology. And because I love all of it, I'm also simultaneously, although I didn't understand it all in the beginning, moving energy and helping to balance out body parts and helping to the release of that repressed anger as I'm standing there and loving every moment of the experience. So I don't know if that totally answers your question.
Did you did you talk to that patient about the anger issue? Did you
Not
bring
that
it up?
one. Not that one. It took me a while. I finally it was over several months because once I started working on the on floor, I started having psychic experiences every single day. They went beyond anything I'd ever had before. And I would get something maybe every 5 years, something cool would happen, but not regularly. I was in my 30s at the time. I had 3 small kids. I was married. And, after a few months of weird stuff happening, I went to my supervisor because I was afraid that I wouldn't call a code. I was the charge nurse most days that I worked, and I was afraid that I would just be talking to the liver and not, running to get the crash cart. And so I went to my supervisor, and of course, that's just the universe 'cause I felt compelled to tell her, even though logically it made no sense to, like she's going to order a psych eval and suspend me, because that's what I would do. And she didn't. She says, "You're seeing energy, and I want you to start laying your hands on our patient." And so I did. And then I started, my guides would scream at me, tell them. So I would shut the door, in the hospital room and have these conversations with clients or patients. Yeah.
So when you say you were seeing all kinds of different things before you went to your supervisor, can you describe, you told us about the liver, but were you seeing their spirit? Were you primarily just seeing body parts and you were talking to the body parts telepathically? What were you seeing? What was the conversation telepathically? And then eventually with your patient cognitively?
Right. So one of the things that happened to me in the beginning was I started to see hundreds of small golden pyramids spinning all around me. And I would go to bed at night and wonder, am I going to see them again? And they hummed this really cool sound. And so as I'm waking up in the morning, I'm waiting for the humming, because I didn't want these things to go away and I didn't know if they were going to or not, honestly. I,
What do you think they are? What do you think they are?
I think they're related to Egypt, and I think they're related to mystery schools in previous lifetimes where either I was a student or maybe a teacher or just the memory of that. I have my whole family has a very uh, weird's maybe not the right word, but an interesting Middle Eastern connection.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. I wanna go down that rabbit hole in a minute, but go ahead. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it was happening all the time. I would walk out of a patient's what I began to do is I would walk in a patient's room, ask if I could lay hands on them, and they all said yes except for one. And, I would get impressions, and then I would go out and read their charts. I would go into patients' rooms that I wasn't assigned to. As a charge nurse, you're not assigned to a group anyway. And then I developed this mental telepathic, encyclopedia of medical intuition in my brain about what things mean and what's going on in their body to help diagnose or treat. Or really, to me, energy medicine and medical intuition is just about raising their frequency and changing their vibration, so that they can be in a different reality and have their body respond in a different perspective. So I didn't have as many conversations in the hospital as I would have liked, but people started showing up at my house unannounced, and
Jeez.
yeah, because also in the hospital when they had, patient or hospital staff got sick, their supervisors would call me and ask if I would come in on my day off, and they would pay me to work on um, employees at the hospital. So somehow my name got out and people started showing up. I didn't even have a massage table, and some people would lay on the couch or the floor. Um, so that's kind of how it all started. And then there was an interesting story because I was married and my former husband is Middle Eastern. Our children are half Middle Eastern. And he was kind of tight with the purse strings, you could say. And I had already been told that his weight room needed to become my healing room. I had started meditating every evening, and I was told that all the weights need to go into the garage and a massage table needs to go in there, and I need to paint the ceiling flowers, right? So I'm having in my head, I'm going, there's no way he's going to move that stuff out of that office. He did. I asked him, and he did it within 30 minutes. So, our spirit guides are having a conversation. And then I'm trying to, because I was used to be very passive and really shy, and I'm not that way anymore. It's funny how when you start to allow yourself to evolve, you move into your more of your authentic self, and none of us really know what that is sometimes, right? And so I was having a conversation with him, trying to get him to order. He was a wonderful father and, lovely, great guy to his kids, but that we had a more subservient kind of relationship. And so I'm trying to talk him into ordering like $1,700 of equipment for my new healing room. And when he asked me, "What are you going to do in there?" I'm like, "I don't really know." That's what I was telling him. And he was being polite, but I could tell he wasn't gonna agree to it, and one of his friends came to the door and came in, his name is Bahman, and he talked him into ordering everything, and 5 months later, Bahman was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he was in my office for several, sessions before he had surgery, and I even got to work on him in the ICU unit post-operatively, and he had a full recovery. And luckily, his brain tumor wasn't cancerous, but it was in a really tricky spot, so it had to be removed, so that it wouldn't continue growing. So, so I feel like the universe has been helping all of us, right, to move along our path as best as we possibly could, but I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, you did, and I'll go back to it in a minute, but I gotta mention this because I had thought of this in a long time. My son Jonathan went to a Catholic grade school with nuns, Dominicans, white habits, like down to the floor habits, the big rosary beads, the veils, the whole 9 yards. And I was on their I was very involved with them, like, from a benefactor standpoint for years, like, at the mother house and all of that, and it got to the point where when one of the sisters, I think there were 15 of them that lived in the convent here that taught in the school here in Birmingham where Jonathan attended, and when one of the sisters was sick, they would call me, and they would ask me to pray over them. So they'd call and they'd say, "Can you do your prayer healing thing on Sister Mary Holy Water," or whoever it is? And I sometimes I went down to the convent and they'd be in the living room and I'd be able to work on them. But I like you, I don't need to be in person, energy is energy. You do it distance. But now they're starting to pass away because a lot of them were older
Well,
when they were
I
there, and
think it's just a blessing, like, they know.
they
Not
know.
not
They know,
first,
and
right? They're
I
separate.
and one of the sisters, she had cancer, she was in the hospital, I was working on her, and she had a message for their mother superior. I don't know if they still called it that, but that's what they called it at the time, and I remember that sister was Sister Christine, and so I told one of the sisters with whom I was really close, I said, "She has a message for Sister Christine." And so the one that I knew well, Sister Mary Luke, she went to Sister Mother Christine, they called her, and she said, "She's gonna think I'm nuts." I said, "No, she's not. You're spiritual. You're a nun, for God's sakes. That's what you're supposed to be doing." So she went and talked to her much like your supervisor, and
Wow.
Mother Christine said, "I totally believe in this, and I will implement what she's suggesting."
Wow.
So, point being, I think your example talking to your supervisor and my example of talking to these sisters telepathically and also in person is don't underestimate people. Don't automatically assume that if you're being given a message to deliver to somebody, deliver it and then let go of what their reaction is because we don't know what's going to happen. And I think these are two really great examples of the message being delivered and being implemented and wonderful things coming as a result of that.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
and I think if more and more people raise their vibration and they can hear the multisensory world communicating to them, then maybe they'll have the confidence to go in there. Because my logical mind, just like yours, is probably, ugh, maybe they won't let us in church, next Sunday or whatever your mind may have thought, or me that I'm going to get suspended, from my job.
Well, and I had been to the Mother House many times, and I'd been in their nightly prayers that are before dinner, and they're called Vespers, and they're doing the Gregorian chant, and they're doing things like that. I mean, the music is amazing. And I could see the energy moving in their chapel, which is massive, and I knew that their vibration level was super high. It was through a different vehicle. It was through something that was more traditional and ancient in the form of the Gregorian chants and all of that, and certainly there's lots of information about music and the frequencies and raising vibrations that way, but I thought, "These guys already get it, but they don't know that they get it." They're just looking at it from a different perspective. These guys, these ladies are. I wanna go down the rabbit trail of your family. You mentioned that you have lots of history
Do
with
you?
psychics. Tell us about that. Were they immigrants to America? I mean, everybody's an immigrant to
Well,
America pretty much, but
Native Americans. So my great
Mm.
grandmother was a Cherokee Indian,
Oh,
and
wow.
my mother's side of the family was like, my mother's very progressive, and my father was very progressive, but neither one of their families were. And so we didn't know a lot about the hair. I don't even really know my great grandmother's real Indian name. I only know the name that she received when she left the reservation. So my great grandmother married a Frenchman, and her cousin also married his brother, and they moved out of Oklahoma and eventually to Idaho, and onto a farm. And so the story that I did hear this story from a fairly young age, that my great grandmother and her relative would do healings on the weekends. People would come to the ranch and they would do healings, and in trade, people would work on the ranch, like fix fences or things of that nature. My mother's mother, um, because she was, sometimes people just, maybe they just have traumas or other things going on in their life and they don't have someone to help them with their psychic or intuitive abilities. So my grandmother, my mom's mom, was a strong alcoholic. But there are stories in the family when my uncle Leroy, who's passed on, when he was in World War II, she knew he was coming home one night. So my mother's setting the table, and my grandmother, her mother, yells at her, "Sit an extra plate." And she goes, "Why?" And she goes, "Uncle, your brother Leroy is coming home tonight." And my mom just looked at her kind of strange and set the table. And sure enough, they all sit down to dinner, and there's a knock on the door, and it's my Uncle Leroy. And in those days, there's no cell phones. I'm sure the family didn't have, access to telegrams or things of that nature, living way out on a ranch somewhere. So there's those stories that were going on, but my mom didn't really emphasize them until I started having experiences. One day we're in the kitchen and I go, "I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't really get it." I was excited about it. I was happy. I was grateful, but and she just goes, "Well, you're just like your great grandmother and the other psychics in her family, and you just need to accept it and allow it to be part of your life." And I accepted it. I loved it, but I guess my logical mind needed some understanding of it so that I could accept it even further into my cells and my DNA.
On the Indian on the Native American thing, we had Dr. Neil Nathan on the show, and he's, I think, the foremost mold expert in the country and helps people who have mold toxicity heal. He's amazing. And he early in his career, he's a GP, MD, he was working on a reservation in one of his first jobs out of medical school after his residency, and he talks, on the show about he had patients in the ICU, and they were not getting better. I think one had sepsis. I don't remember what the other one had. And so they were Native American patients. And somebody came to him and said, "Can we bring the tribal healers in?" And he said, "Yeah, by all means." And he said, "I'm thinking, bring it on, whatever we can do to help this patient." And he said for 3 days, they did a drumming ceremony pretty much 24/7. They'd bring different people in for different shifts. And he said on the third day, both patients were completely healed and he was able to discharge them the next day. So back to raising the frequency, raising the vibration just in a different way than those nuns doing the Gregorian chant or, whoever doing whatever. It's all about the vibration at the end of the day. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, everything is about frequency. Everything is. And if we could only help humans to actually feel their real emotions, a lot of people are in created emotions all day long, which aren't even authentic. And they go up and down and they're sporadic and they lower frequency and vibration. They manifest things they don't want. They're connected to energy that's not in their highest good. They're not speaking their truth because they don't know what they really feel. So they're in this interesting misalignment, with their energetic system. And yet all the knowledge and awareness and consciousness they could ever want is inside of them too. So getting people to actually learn to be authentically happy, not fake it till you make it, but like really happy, like really joyful, like um walking in the hospital when I was pregnant with my first child. And I was actually afraid to go. The night before I was afraid because my mother was so anti-medicine, that it scared me. But yet, as soon as I went through the revolving door, I couldn't stop feeling joyful. That was the universe talking to me and setting the path for me to choose modern medicine because my psychic ability is going to open up in a hospital, we can't try to logically understand these things. These things are energetic. They're based on our previous lifetimes and what we've decided to heal and explore and experience here in this lifetime to heal the past and send positive energy towards our future and our present moment. So that's the tricky part. I mean, that's where I spend the most amount of my time teaching and with clients, of course, moving clients' energy for them, but getting them to raise their frequency and their vibration and to stop listening to their limited mind. It's a great thing for technology. It's great for logic, but you know, it's not intuitive. The brain, the third eye sits here and allows for us to, at least have the way understanding it today, the third eye allows us to hear, see, and feel the multisensory world, but it's really connected to the rest of us connected to our authentic emotional response system is what gives us access to the psychic realm and the multisensory world.
Do you believe everybody has the ability to do what you and I do?
I believe everybody's highly intuitive for their own self and their own life. And they can even talk to their own dead loved ones. Not everybody is meant to be a psychic or a medium. I think we have many, many people who have not woken up to those gifts yet. We need millions of those people to wake up because we have billions of people on the planet, but some people are meant to do other things, It's whatever really brings you personal joy. So I believe there are many people who don't have an idea, like, I don't know your whole story. I read about you, but I don't know your whole story. But I didn't know I was psychic until I was 37. I had no idea whatsoever. And I think there's a lot of people who will wake up. But I think it's normal to be intuitive for your own experience, that it's a necessary tool to help humanity to evolve and progress and to continue our evolutionary process. We cannot really evolve without it. Like we need it. I make very different decisions versus how I was before I knew I was intuitive. Decisions I make today are very, very different, but very fulfilling and rewarding and bring more joy in my life and more excitement and more surprise.
You say with clients and your former patients that you're able to facilitate a massive subatomic shift in energy that heals disease and illness. Can you simplify that for us? Give us an idea of what you mean by that. That's a very compelling, uh, provocative statement. That
Provocative, yeah.
provocative and like, I want to know more. Provocative in a good way. Like, I wanna know more
Right.
about it.
Well, like you, I know how to run my energy really high. It's
Mm.
something
How do
that's
you
rich.
do that? How do you hook in to
Honestly
somebody?
honestly, it's just automatic for me. When I'm working, it's just automatic. I mean,
But
I
how
w
did you learn to do it when you
ah,
first started doing it?
so my spirit guides talked to me, and, they asked me to rest my energy in the lower half of my body, like in my pelvic cavity area. And they asked me to get curious about what I was feeling because I didn't know. I didn't know that I didn't know what I was feeling. I had no idea that I had no idea that I didn't know what I was feeling. So when I finally could get in there, it was like this beautiful cave, and I could see like a small version of myself in this lovely cave. It was quite gorgeous, but it was empty and there was no energy there. There was, it was lovely. And so I started hanging out there. And when I work, however I'm working, I just naturally rest in that part of my body. Like if one of my kids asked me an intuitive question a couple months ago, that I have 6 grandchildren now, and several of them were at the house, and I went to go get food because I don't cook a lot for my family anymore. I don't like to spend a lot of time in the kitchen anymore. So I was picking up lunch for us, and one of the kids slammed their finger in a door jamb, and my daughter said, "Mom, can you check and see if it's broken?" And I said, "Okay," she met with my psychic ability. And I said, "Okay, but I have to detach. It's so much harder when I'm around my family, or friends. I have to actually work on detaching." And all the kids are playing and one's screaming. And it took me about 45 minutes to rest into my abdomen. I had to wait till this one grandchild was by herself. I didn't want the family around. And so I walk over, her name's Allie. I walk over to Allie and I'm just scanning her hand and oh, it's not broken. Nothing's broken. I could see her growth plates had a really, I'm highly, highly um, clairvoyant. Uh, and I know you have all the clairs. And, so I could see that her growth plate was wide. So I told her, I go, "I don't see a fracture." I go, "If it gets worse, please take her to the doctor and have it checked." And so a couple days later, my daughter did take her to the doctor, took her to a urgent care place who said it was fractured and sent her to a pediatric, physician for bones. The bone doctor said it wasn't broken and that oh, she has really big growth plates, and the doctor in the other facility mistook the growth plate for a fracture. So, around my family, I have to work harder.
Yeah. Yeah, because you got emotional investment, and when we're in fear, it's a low vibration, and spirit doesn't communicate on the I feel crappy channels because the vibration's too low.
And my kids, although they adore and love me and cherish me and are proud of me, and, a couple of them sometimes, "I'm not sure what you're really doing, mom," like, they do, but, I have a lawyer, a professor, and engineer as my children, which is lovely, but they also have strong intellectual minds, so I have that too, where I wanna please them and not disappoint them. But at work, it's just automatic, like, even as I'm talking to you, I'm just in my pelvic cavity, I'm very grounded, but my mind is quiet so that my third eye and my multisensory abilities can actually work without interruption.
Mhm. So you're scanning somebody far, far away. So you think of them, what happens? What's your technique?
Oh, that's so interesting. I everything just feels like it's right here with me, and nothing feels far away, everything feels it's right next to me, I'm in the room with them. I was actually on someone else's podcast, and I was answering questions for this one podcaster for their audience, and I couldn't see them, um, for the way they have their podcast, and so the guy's asking me this question, he has a growth in his hand, and you know how intuition is? It tells you what you need to know, which I think is the challenging part for humanity is they have to learn to stop listening to their mind and stay in the intuitive aspect. So I didn't know if it was cancerous or whatnot, but what I saw, and he'd already had 2 significant surgeries and it kept growing back. And he was about to go in and have a debilitating surgery where he wouldn't have full function of his hand. And my intuition showed me this very large wart. So I told him, I always tell my clients everything I see and hear. Right? Yeah, it helps. And I said, looks like a really large wart." And I knew what he needed for it to go away. I knew it was related to his heart chakra, but he wasn't my client. I didn't know if I was gonna have a session with him. And so I said, "This just needs near infrared and red light therapy. You need to go get one of those panels and start putting your hand in front of it." It was cancerous, which my intuition didn't show me. It just showed me this picture of a big, large wart. And warts can spread out, right? And so that's what the cancer was doing. It was spreading out in his hand and interrupting vascular flow and playing with his nerves and everything. So he did what I suggested, went back to his doctor, it was gone,
Yeah.
completely gone. And
Well, you weren't led to tell him it was cancer because he would have gone down a different route.
well, he already knew it was cancer.
Oh, he
Uh,
did?
yeah,
Okay.
he already knew. He'd already had 2 surgeries. The doctors knew it was cancer. But for whatever reason, the universe showed me what would make sense to me even about what he needed, which warts kind of need light, they're viruses. So it didn't really matter what was in his hand. I just needed to describe it to him in a way where he would trust and listen to how I received information about how it could heal. And it did, which is great, and his doctor said, "Just keep doing what you're doing," you know?
Yeah. Well, I, like you, don't edit anything I get because I believe, number 1, who am I to decide what they need to hear? If I'm receiving the information, I'm the conduit. I'm the one that's supposed to convey it. And also, and I'd love your take on this, everything's healable.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
Anything can go away in an instant,
Right.
in an
Right.
absolute instant, and so I mean, I can't I don't know you. We just met for the first time today, but I said when we came on that I feel like we're soul sisters. We have a lot in common. Uh, that if only people could trust the experience it's coming in through a medical intuitive, a medium, a healer, whatever terminology a person, and try it, just try it, which thankfully most of my clients do. Try their recommendations.
Do your clients come to you after they've exhausted other methodologies, kind of like as a last ditch effort sometimes?
I would say the majority of the people who come to
Mine
see,
do too.
right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes it trickier, because not only are we helping to change their perception and to move their energy into a positive alignment, they're also now dealing with medical serious issues, right? So I had this one client who had had debilitating head pain for 20 years. And he'd, of course, been to lots of doctors. He refused, though, to get an MRI of his brain, which was interesting. And this was a man who was very successful, traveled a lot, and uh, within our first session, the pain decreased by 50%. And so now he no longer has pain. I think I saw him 3 times. But one of the things that because I can move energy, but if the patient doesn't change some of their behaviors too, they can go back to recreating the energy. So we had to talk about him not over giving, over nurturing his family, over working for them. Like he was such a big giver and wanted everybody to have everything. Maybe kids don't have to go to Ivy League universities and someone could work less. So we had a lot of those conversations. I'm not sure that he changed all of those outward things, but he definitely thought about it and started to think about, what about me? What kind of rest do I need? Do I need to be flying around the world all the time to work? But his pain has not come back. So he made some appropriate changes.
Do you find that there's an emotional component in place before disease or illness or any kind of medical condition arises?
100%.
I agree. I
Right?
do the same. I find the same. Yeah.
Everything's based on an emotion, everything. And when people aren't feeling their real emotions and they're in these mind-made emotions and they can't actually deal with their real emotion. I also think that the majority of people are actually really, really happy. Like a high percentage of people are happy, but they listen to their brain. So they think they're anxious, they think they're depressed, or they think they're mad. And so they start to create they start to run their energy on these mind-made emotions that then negatively affect their health or other parts of their life. So just getting people to feel their real emotions is a big part of my job.
How do you do that?
Ah. So remember how I said I just go directly into my lower abdominal area?
Mhm.
So what I teach clients, because the emotional response system, which is the second layer of the auric field, is greatly attached to the second chakra. So they're like best friends and they have a great conversation. So our feelings are not in our brain, even though everybody thinks they are, right? They're not. In fact, you and I, we work on not listening to our minds. all day long and to stay out of fear. That's why it took me 45 minutes to read Alessandra's hand, because I was in my brain, and it took me that long to get me out.
Yeah. Well, when you're in fear, because it's somebody you love. Yeah.
Course, and I
Makes
wanna
total
do
sense.
my job for
Yeah.
my children. So, I teach clients to rest in the lower half of their body, and the way I do this, I have them close their eyes and rotate their eyeballs upward to look into their eyebrows and take several deep breaths, and then to imagine like a beautiful waterfall moving from their head down to their toes, because we're trying to get energy out of the brain. The brain's the covers, it doesn't require a lot of energy. It's comfort. Oh, I can't think of the word right now. But it doesn't need a lot of energy. So I'm getting people to get their energy below. So they're imagining this beautiful waterfall or feeling it, however they want to experience it, hearing it. I don't care. And and then I ask them to wiggle their toes for like 15 seconds. And then I've already asked them prior, but I forgot to mention that their hands are on their lap somehow. And then I ask them to imagine that their hands are sinking into their skin or their legs, whether they hear it, see it, feel it. And then I ask them, this takes a few minutes, to ask their hands, what am I really feeling right now? What am I really feeling? And then it doesn't matter how it communicates with them. Just like, emotions are just like intuition. You could see a color, you could hear something, you could feel something, but it's usually a surprise. I think real emotions are calm. Even if people are authentically angry and authentically sad, there's a calm kind of detachedness to the emotion. So I teach them that, because if they can start to hang out, uh, then they'll start to have more multisensory abilities and stop listening to their beautiful brain. I think the brain's beautiful. It's just not being utilized. And then I remind clients that real emotions change every 7 to 10 days. So they're not changing every second or every 5 minutes or every hour, or when someone says something, the mind might react, but it doesn't mean the emotional response system is reacting. So I'm trying to teach them to learn how to occupy that part of their body and to be in that place. And they won't have to do that exercise forever, but if they do it for several months,
Mm-hmm.
even though emotions don't change every day, I ask them to do it every day so they can practice it. And then they'll just start to sit in that
Mm-hmm.
part of their body more routinely.
One of my dear friends is a Taoist priest, and he's got this lineage to these Korean poobah, Taoist master, whatever. And he says, his name's Son Ching, and he says, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And I always say that feelings, emotion are our internal GPS system that guides us on our path. And learning to discern, and that's what you teach, and that's what I teach, learning to discern what's a real fear and what's fake fear, because thoughts don't have a meaning until we give them a meaning. You may like green, I may hate green. You may like red, I may hate red. You know, whatever. But it doesn't have a meaning. A thought doesn't have a meaning until we give it a meaning based on our life experience and our understanding of certain circumstances. And so I think that's I don't think, I know, and I know you do too, that that's a huge aspect to being in touch with spirit, is being able to discern between what's a real fear, what's fake fear, keeping your vibration high by staying out of fear.
Yeah, that is 99% of the
I
work,
agree.
right? Not just as the professions that we have, but just to be happy and fulfilled
Yeah,
and make
I
sure you're
agree.
buying the right food at the right grocery store, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I
yeah.
agree. Changing directions for a minute, do you believe we choose our parents and the circumstances into which we're born? And if so, why would anybody choose something that would be a life of misery? I'm
Right.
using air quotes, of misery.
Right. Absolutely. I believe souls are extremely bright and intelligent geniuses. They know what they're doing. To reincarnate to Earth is a choice. It's part of free will, which is one of the strongest laws in the universe. So souls choose to come to Earth or not. And they take about 4 Earth years to kind of figure out the whole situation, like what gender, what century they're going to come to.
Mm.
things
I
that,
haven't heard that before. Have you heard that from spirit?
yeah. Yeah.
The
I don't
4-year thing?
human teachers or, maybe a few sentences in a few books, but
Yeah.
yeah, even some of the things that I do for energy work were taught to me by beings. One that looked like a nun, by the way,
Yeah, of
who walked
course. Yeah.
right, of course, so sacred, walked into my office and kind of yelled at me for a few months until I finally did what she asked me to do because I didn't want to. I'll explain that a little bit if you want me to. But yes, so souls are geniuses. And we choose our parental units for really good reasons. We may not choose the exact people, but we sit down with God and archangels and the guides that we've chosen because we choose our guides. They have to agree because it's not recommended to reincarnate to Earth without spirit guides because so many people don't expand their consciousness beyond the veil. And so we need help, like humans need help. That's why departed loved ones come too, to help. They don't need help. They come to help, right?
Right. Right.
Right. So, yes, I believe that. And I can't speak for all well, I can. And we don't always know what a soul wants to learn, and right. And of course, really challenging situations could break open a heart chakra or heal something. A lot of people who are born into neglectful childhoods want to learn self love and self compassion. Like because that's the most healing love you could ever experience is to adore and cherish oneself, which has nothing to do with ego. Because as you pointed out, the ego is everything about fear. But to really authentically love oneself is the greatest experience a being could have, to just unconditionally adore oneself. And yet we're not really, we're kind of programmed not to have any
Yeah,
of
I
that.
was gonna say that's a learned skill.
It is.
Yeah, I agree with you. Changing directions again. Is language important when we wanna manifest something? And and how can we manifest in the most efficient way?
You are just a gem, by the way. And we're so lucky you're here on the planet, Julie. You're just a gem.
I'm asking the right questions.
Well, it's just your energy. I mean, yes, I love your questions, all of them. But yes, we do have to have positive wording. Even when I'm helping a client who's, let's say, has bone on bone and refuses to get a knee replacement, that's fine, but won't change their perceptions and won't set boundaries. And I change their energy and make it better for a while. And so as I'm having them manifest, I'm asking them to say, thank you so much, creation, for the beautiful flexibility and comfort I have in my entire body. So we don't want people to even focus on a body part because they already focus on that body part with negativity. And I have them not use the word health or healing, because they've already been in the healing world and they have probably negative feelings about it. So now their body's incredibly happy. If people are lonely and want friends and partnerships, they can't just focus on, oh, I have to have this partner. Well, maybe you don't even want a partner. Maybe you want a dog and a whole bunch of friends that you can travel with. You don't know. So the thank you, universe, for the incredible adventures I'm having, for the wonderful people that surround me, for the love and joy that is ever present in my life. Yeah, you have to be general in a certain perspective about it because not everybody knows what they want. Like I have a dog. I never thought I'd ever want a dog. I've had cats my whole life. Now I'm like, why in the world did I have cats? Dogs are way more fun, because I hike and walk and, he goes everywhere with me in the car and, he gets a treat and I get a treat at the coffee shop, so much fun. So anything can be manifested, but I think what happens is so many people forget about the surrender aspect of manifesting. You have to get out of the way. You have to allow the universe to bring you what's in your best interest. Like so many people have said to me in the past, not recently, like, why were you a nurse? As if, you know, as if they don't recognize that there was a manifesting aspect that got me to the nursing career. And one day when I stepped off the elevator to get onto the floor. And I didn't have the language for it then, but my energy completely dropped. And I thought, uh-oh, what's wrong? Am I supposed to leave nursing? And it kept dropping every time I got off that. I got new scrubs, a new stethoscope. I thought maybe I should just work in another department. I'm like, nope, I'm supposed to leave nursing. And so every morning as I'm putting on my scrubs, I would thank the universe for helping me to find my passion again. I didn't think about what it was or how much money I'm going to make or None of those factors, because when you're in high vibration, you attract abundance, love, health, wealth, and joy, all of it. So I would just look in the mirror and thank the universe. Thank you for allowing me to find another passion. I had no idea it was going to be energy medicine. I had no idea that I was even psychic at that point. And so, yes, language is important in surrendering, getting out of the way so that the universe can bring what you actually want, like your spirit, your soul. That's why souls incarnate, is to have an experience in this physical reality. Because if you can do it here on earth, you can do it anywhere in the cosmos.
Right. Right. And spirit knows better what we want than we know because our frame of reference is so limited. So we want to have an unimaginable experience. Well, unimaginable means we can't imagine it because we don't have a frame of reference for it. And it's always, if we let go, it's been my experience, it's always better than what we've imagined.
So much better. So
Yeah.
much better.
I agree. I agree. Have you found when people learn how to do mediumship and energy healing that it affects them personally? And have you also found that it can affect and does affect the people that are in their circle, whether that be family or friends or acquaintances or whomever?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
How
it's
so?
almost it's almost like getting a divorce, which, I mean, I hate to use that analogy, but it is. Your life changes because your perception changes. You see things very differently. I remember this one time, and I was psychically aware, and I was at a dinner party, and we were all sitting around eating dessert. The guys were outside having cigars, and the women were having tea and dessert. And um, one of the hostess of the party, uh, someone kept asking me to become friends with this person, and we were friends, but kind of at a distance, and I just didn't have the feeling of it. I didn't feel it. And we're sitting around. Nobody knows I'm psychic at this party, and all of a sudden, I see these tentacles coming off of the hostess and taking other people's energy. And right? And she would talk about things that were really dramatic, which would make the dinner party really fun and interesting. It was always drama. But then as people are releasing epinephrine and norepinephrine from their system, her tentacles are going out and sucking it off. And I even saw the tentacles coming towards me, but because I could see them, they just turned away. Ah, So it was so I was like, "Oh, that's why I don't wanna be friends with her," you know? Close
She
friends.
was an energy suck.
She was. She had that vampire energy where, she doesn't know how to run her own energy effectively. So she learned, probably from childhood, maybe it was modeled to her, to create drama and traumas in her life or talk about them a lot. And then everybody releases epinephrine and norepinephrine. I can't say it right now. I lose some of my language when I'm reading energy. And then people release that, and then she sucks it all up and gives her a temporary boost in her energy system. And it actually feeds her energy system, but it's just not great long term. It's not the best way to feed one's subatomic particles and organs and anatomy and physiology.
Do you find that that's very common with narcissists?
It is common with narcissists. I hadn't really thought about it that
Yeah, I find that true. Yeah.
It's very common. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm having, like, all these little light bulb moments right
One
now.
of my, dear friends, Dr. Christiane Northrup, the women's health expert,
She
she wrote
endorsed
a book.
my book, actually. I
What's
wa
that?
She endorsed my book,
Oh, that's a
years
big
ago.
endorsement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big endorsement. She wrote a book called Dodging Energy Vampires.
Ooh.
It's great, and
Mm.
she I recommend it to a lot of clients. And I'll say, "Read this book, and then let me know what you think," and they'll email me back, and they'll say, "Oh my god, I recognized pretty much everything she was talking about in there." But again, back to the female thing, we're brought up to take care of everybody and to have compassion and to, this narcissist who's an energy vampire. And I'd never heard it described with the tentacles, but that's a great visualization, which for everybody listening and watching, it's a metaphor. It's it's an analogy of something that we can visualize from our human perspectives for what's going on energetically.
And that's why intuition is different for everyone. And that's why you have to really know yourself and what you feel so that you can allow yourself to translate the information coming towards you. That there isn't a magical book that drops from the heavens and says, this psychic impression means this thing. They're all unique and different for all of us, which makes it so cool and interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I have these crazy visuals like you. And at first I was thinking, "Oh my god, people are just gonna think I am just out of my ever loving mind when I'm telling them their elbow looks like whipped cream or something." But it's intended to give them a frame of reference from a visual perspective so they can help integrate the healing into their body. Because the body's gonna follow what the brain's showing it.
And also help them to get out of fear. Like when I was telling that gentleman it looked like a wart to me, that probably helped him to reduce his anxiety and his vibration
Yeah, good point.
so that he's not in fight or flight about, oh my gosh, this cancer won't stop growing in my hand. Am I going to have a hand? Which is, I'm sure, something he thought a few times. Yeah, intuition is meant to be respected. It's no matter if it's whipped cream, mashed potatoes, or
Or
it's,
dippity doo. Stem
ooh,
cell energy looks like dippity doo to me.
I love that. Ooh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. I love that.
yeah. What happens when we die? Couple more questions as we're winding down.
Well, I think it's a pretty incredible experience, quite frankly. Um, here's how I kind of I've been at the bedside of a lot of people dying as a nurse, obviously, and then even as an energy worker. And so as our energy is leaving, right, it's speeding out like it's moving out of the chakras. We take our chakras with us, although we don't need the root chakra very much because you're not going to be grounded. You don't need your brain because everything's intuitive, but we start to move into the astral plane, which is the field closest to Earth. I call it the psychic realm. Some people call it the psychic plane, astral plane. And they may stay there for hours, days, weeks, months, even years, like all the ghosts, which is a small percentage. I think it's like 3% of the population are actual ghosts. They are just beings who have refused to cross and they just hang out in the astral plane. They could be conscious of it, they could be unconscious of it. And then so people like some people are fascinated, like the people who I've seen who died in car accidents, like really quick deaths, and they jump out of their body and they're standing there and then the EMTs are there and they're watching the whole thing. They're kind of like, wow, what's happening, So they kind of stay in the astral plane. That's one of the examples for a little while because it's so incredibly cool for them. And then some people are confused. I had a client once, this lovely lady who, when she came to see me, I just could see her crossing. And I tell clients if I don't think I'm going to help them, if that's their goal to stay in their body, I tell them, I think you're going to die, and I think it's going to be about this time. And I don't see that very often, but it's happened a few times in my career. And she still wanted to see me. She even had cancer growing out of her body and working full time, just wouldn't let go. So, I'm sorry to answer it this way, but her husband called me and asked if I would come to her bedside when she was getting last rites. And I took a ferry to their home. And she's arguing with me. She goes, I'm not going to die. And I go, I hope you don't. So, anyway, she passed over the next day. She flew around my house in the astral plane for a few months, kind of pissed off at me. You know? Which was adorable. I loved every second of it. It was
Mm. Well, I'm picturing Samantha Stevens on her broom and Bewitched. Da 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 da.
I thought it was precious. I was honored. It was an honor.
Oh,
It
that's
was
hilarious.
so you may stay in the astral plane for whatever time period, and then you start to. Some people cross really quick. They leave their body and they're on the other side in seconds, right? And some people they're waiting for a grandmother to come. Some people see even as they're dying their room full of their ancestors and people from different time periods of their previous lifetimes. The universe knows who we would love to be there. It could be our gerbil pet from third grade, right? No matter where anybody else is in the universe, they're going to come or they're going to bring this spiritual aspect of themselves to that room and help you in your crossing over aspect. So it's like a baby shower in reverse.
Yeah, I call it the Welcome to Heaven Committee. It's
Mm.
like they used to have welcome wagon ladies, when you move into a new neighborhood, and now I call that the Welcome to Heaven Committee. The welcome wagon ladies, when I was growing up, would if somebody would move in, they would bring a basket of goodies or, something along those lines. So I always think of the Welcome to Heaven committee, like the welcome wagon ladies. Last question. Why do we incarnate?
There's so many reasons. There isn't just one, but there is like something we hope that we discover about ourselves or learn about ourselves or experience. For you and I think it has a lot to do with our multisensory abilities. I think it's one of the reasons why we incarnated to Earth. But then we incarnate to have family and friends and fun and hike and swim and it's just there's a plethora of reasons why we incarnate to such a beautiful reality. Some people, they come to learn to escape difficult situations, to move out of parts of the world that aren't safe and to change their frequency and vibration to learn to be financially free. I mean, there's just so many reasons why people incarnate. But love is probably up at the top, to experience love in the physical and learn to unconditionally love others and ourselves, but many, many things.
The Beatles song, Love is all you need, just was coming in my head as you're saying that. You
Yes.
are you are my sister from another mister. I agree with you.
I
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're saying the
We
same
gotta hang
thing.
out. We gotta hang out for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, really, I can't what's gonna happen when we meet? There'll be fireworks. No.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, which is once you connect with spirit, then you can do it all.
You can. I agree with
I
you.
don't understand why it's siloed. It's
I
like you got the
so
pet psychics and the mediums and the healers and the whatever and the past life people. It's like you connect with spirit, you can do it all.
I agree with you 1000%.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to students who are trying to make a decision about, oh, should I be a medium or a healer? I go, well, what brings you the most joy? And healers become mediums and mediums become healers, and I talk to animals all the time, uh, personally and professionally. So yeah, I love your message. Very few people say that, Julie, and I think it's really incredibly important because that if someone's moving professionally into the career path that you and I had chosen, then they have more options and more experiences and more ways that they could help people versus I only do this. I think that's a very limiting. Yeah, I agree. When you're psychic, you're psychic.
You are extraordinary. You are even more fabulous than I knew you would be. I've heard so many wonderful things about you and was really eager to meet you and have a chat with you and kind of like coffee clatch is what it feels like from Saturday Night Live.
I feel
Yeah.
this very same about you, and I can't wait to interview you on my podcast, which
All right, we'll make that happen. How can people learn more about you and your work?
you can visit my website at energyintuitive.com. I only see about 4 people a week now. I used to see 25 a week, but I teach extensively, which makes me even more joyful. So haven't opened up 2027 yet, but we do have a cancellation list, and it is based on health issues. So the sicker someone is, the faster they get in. Just in case people have an idea, and they can just write into energyintuitive.com, and my assistant will put you on that list. So I do a podcast as you do. Everything's at energyintuitive.com or mariemanuchehri.com. My classes, workshops.
All right, girl. We'll put all that in the show notes, and so everybody will have the links to be able to find you and learn more about you.
I always forget that on the podcast, people can leave a voicemail on my, I answer questions on the podcast. I'm usually 6 months behind, and I do 2 podcasts a week, but I will eventually get to your question and answer it for you. So it's one way where people could get
Oh,
potential help.
great.
Yeah.
Terrific. All right. All right, everybody. We've given you lots to ponder here this afternoon. Sending you lots of love from Sweet Home, Alabama. Mwah! And from Washington, too, where Marie is. We'll see you next time. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your family and friends.